Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix family? Bob here. Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for joining me on this morning talk. So today I wanted to take a detour instead of finishing up with the beast system. We'll do that tomorrow. I wanted to, and I know this is 2 days late, but I did that on purpose because, I don't know. I find it a little out of, little distasteful to talk about this subject on Easter. Just because so many people believe a certain way and have been taught a certain way, and I'm trying not to disrespect people's beliefs. So that's why I'm doing this 2 days later. However, I really wanted to talk about really, the whole Easter thing, because so many people have been mistaught really what Easter is. And that's because of the Roman power structure, the Roman government. When they adopted Christianity as the state religion, they incorporated a lot of the pagan festivals and celebrations in with Christianity, as a way to bolster followers and money. Because, at the bottom of religion, there's always a pile of money, right? And you find this with Christmas also. But we're going to just focus on Easter. And hopefully you at least come out of this learning something. Now, first off, folks, before I get into the nitty-gritty, I just want you guys all to understand, because I know a lot of people attack me and they say I'm an atheist, that I'm a anti-Christian, that I'm a blasphemer, and all these other things. And I just want you guys to understand, look, I believe from my research and everything that Yeshua was a real person that walked the earth. And I also believe that he has many teachings outside of the Bible that were, let's just say, banned because, or canceled at the time because they went against what the state religion was trying to, the story they were trying to build and write. If you read the Nag Hammadi scriptures, you'll find that Yeshua taught reincarnation, amongst many other things that Christians would say is blasphemous, right? A lot of Zoroastrianism and other stuff. But when I've read the actual teachings of Yeshua, not Paul's teachings, not the other disciples' teachings, but you find that Yeshua's teachings are actually very simple, at least the ones that were allowed to make their way into the Bible. And his talk about the afterlife was spot on, actually. It actually lines up with NDE accounts. Like the 3-day resurrection, for instance, oftentimes NDEers will talk about this 3 days of purification that happens in the womb, which is called the void, before the spirit travels back to heaven. Now, obviously, outside of this realm, outside of the human body, time, isn't linear like it is here on Earth, right? In this construct. So I just kind of want everybody to understand that also. But they do say there's a purification process. They say it's a 3-day process. Now, is that 3 days on Earth or what? I don't know. Before you actually are, able to go to the light and go to the realm that we come from. And sorry, folks, I'm going to try to talk really loud. As you can tell, it's just started raining. and it's raining pretty good, so sorry about that. I'm going to try to make this, loud and clear for you guys so you can hear over the background of the rain. And when he told the, was it the thief that was on the cross next to him, he told him that he would basically be, with him that day, right? Well, yeah, because, look, folks, Yeshua was trying to teach the truth. Like, his Father has a mansion with many rooms, that... Look, we all come from the same home, folks. We all go back. We all go through the process of the 3-day cleansing before you go home. Because you got to understand, like, when you're collecting, like, all this negative energy in a world of duality, vibrations and energy signatures that aren't allowed in the higher dimensions, you have to shed all that. And some people actually think that what we call ghosts here on Earth is that leftover dark side, that shadow side of human beings. When they cross over, it's like it's shed off, that negative energy, right? It gets shed. And well, if they had a very dark past and stuff, they built that shadow side up pretty strong, where it can essentially live on in this world, or at least kind of replay itself like a recording, right? It's like an energy signature. And maybe really evil people that have done a lot of bad stuff, that shadow side that gets left behind actually has enough energy to take on its own consciousness in this realm. So I don't know. That's just all speculation. But anyways, Yeshua was, wow, that was a lightning strike, bright, huh? Yeshua was just trying to tell him, like, look, man, we're going to be both in the same place when we leave the body, right? And then, of course, you had the mysteries of Yeshua's resurrection, like the missing body. But, however, when he was discovered, when the women came upon him, right? Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, they said that he was almost, I don't know, the way they explained him was that he was almost incorporeal a little bit, but yet they could still, he had a feel to him, right? Like still a physical touch, even though it almost seemed like he wasn't a full physical human. Well, this is interesting, folks, because what a lot of people say is that, when you're on the other side, out of the body, the human body, they'll say that you have like the form of a body, but they say it's even more, if anything, it's even more real than the human body. The senses are way more advanced, 360-degree view, advanced hearing, advanced vision, where you can see colors you've never seen before. It's like you have all the senses, but they're just like super powered, like they're almost like a superhero level power, right? And so when you read about the interesting explanations of Yeshua after the tomb, it's almost like he's taken on those aspects of that spirit body that can still be realer than the physical body, but have supernatural abilities, right? Folks, and I've told you guys before this on countless videos, that Yeshua was an Essene. So was Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, his sister Mary, the three Marys, right? Spoken of in the Nag Hammadi. His brothers, they were all Essenes, folks, and John the Baptist was an Essene. And the Essenes were mystics, and they were known to do mystic ceremonies, mystery school ceremonies. Well, it's known in the Gnostic teachings that Yeshua and his entourage with the three Marys and such, that they went to Egypt and they were studying the mystery school teachings in Egypt. Well, folks, some of the major mystery school teachings are the mysteries of the out-of-body experience, the near-death experience. They have the Egyptians had ways that you could force an OBE. And it gave you the understanding of that you're an immortal spirit, and that the spirit, the consciousness can leave the body. Okay? They knew this. If you went through these ceremonies, then you would know this. So, anyways, folks, I'm just trying to write the backstory here, okay? And it's important because it ties in with all this, okay? Sorry, folks. Wow, the roads are woo. I mean, it is raining so hard, dude. My car is hydroplaning a little bit. So, I'm taking it real slow here. Dang. So, I'm going to try to keep rolling on this video, folks. It's probably not the best time to be doing one. But I'm going to go take it real slow. I left the house pretty early, so I got some time to get to work. But, anyway, so just kind of keep all this in the back of your mind, okay, folks? So that's just kind of a quick gloss over of the actual Yeshua's his resurrection, right? That Christians celebrate on Easter. Was this all happening and everything? So now we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of Easter itself. And look, folks, this is very simple, right? Very simple. Easter is just a derivative. It's a phonetically similar word for Ishtar. Ishtar. And then I know Christians, they go psychotic when you bring up Ishtar, because she's besmirched in the Old Testament. Well, of course she was. She was a rival to Yahweh. Okay? Enlil. Yahweh is the Sumerian god Enlil. Well, it just so happens that Inanna, Ishtar, was his daughter, at least according to the Anuna pantheon. But she's oftentimes at odds with her father, and she's oftentimes a rival to him in world affairs and power affairs. And there's a little bit of a conflict between the two, and you can find this in the various cuneiform tablets. Oftentimes, Inanna, Ishtar, will go to her father, Enlil, for help with stuff, and he'll rebuff her. So then she'll end up going to her grandfather, Anu, the Most High, also known as El Elyon in the Bible. Or she'll go to her uncle Enki, who's known as the serpent in the Garden of Eden. See, folks, all these characters in the Bible are intertwined. They're of the Anuna pantheon, okay? They're all in the same, power structure. They're the royal blood of the Anunnaki, okay? Well, Ishtar, who is called Inanna in Sumer in the older. See, Ishtar was her Babylonian name. Inanna was her Akkadian, her Sumerian name. Well, she was the goddess of sex, or you could say love, fertility, and war. And this was from the beginning, folks, okay? And in Babylon, she was esteemed as the same. So there's a little thing about Inanna. What did I mention? She was a goddess of fertility. See, folks, you got to realize that we live in a day and age where people are like dismissing their children, and we have like all these contraceptives and stuff to try to limit children, right? And I mean, the Western world and a lot of Western world, a lot of Asia is dying right now because we're averaging under 2 kids per household. And well, back then, women, if they could and they didn't die from childbirth, women would oftentimes try to have as many kids as they could because you needed children. They were your workers. They would help manage the family's, property, like the animals and the crops, and they would help with, other like work and stuff. I mean, kind of like what you see like in a modern day farm, like a farm family, a farming family. Oftentimes the kids would get out on the tractor and go run the fields and work the fields and feed the animals every morning before school and such. I mean, I know nowadays these kids are lazy, and trust me, I'm speaking from experience from my own, just leave it at that. But anyways, you guys get the drift. These kids nowadays, it's like, oh my God, put your dishes in the dishwasher. Like, what? No way, that's too much. Like, what do you expect me to do everything? It's tough. But back then, children were used like little workers, You wanted many children. And part of that too, folks, is because children would die at an early age. Oftentimes, you'd be lucky if out of 10 children, you had 2 or 3 survive past 10 years old, That was just common, it was a rough time back then. Children didn't have a very good chance of making it. They didn't understand, oh shit, holy crap. Wow, folks. Whew. This is turning into a deluge, my gosh. I mean, I'm going 40 right now, and I just hit a bank of water on the road that completely washed up over my car. I mean, I lost total vision there for about, 2 seconds. Wow, that was crazy. I hope you guys can hear this. I mean, I'm kind of almost thinking about just redoing this tomorrow, but now it's starting to kind of let up a little. But yeah, I'll hear folks in the Smoky Mountains, when it rains, I mean, it doesn't just rain. It's like, my gosh, it's crazy how hard it pours. Living in Colorado, we didn't get that much rain, but man, out here, it's like, geez. So anyways, you'd have a lot of children. So fertility was a major thing for ancient cultures. So what women would do is they would make a pilgrimage to the city-states if they didn't live in one of the city-states of like Uruk or Ur, they had all these, ancient city-states. And they would take eggs and they would dip eggs in their menstrual blood. And they would leave those eggs on Inanna's altars, on Ishtar's altars, asking for good fertility for the upcoming year. And everybody knows that spring is the time for shagging, right? I mean, let's be clear, when the spring comes, even human beings, our libido tends to go up. As there's more sunlight, as there's a refreshing, a renewal of the earth, of living plants and animals and such, our bodies, if they're in tune with that, you feel the difference. So, fertility was huge. And they would leave those eggs because they wanted children, folks. They wanted to be fertile. And they thought Inanna would grant their wishes or their prayers. And then, of course, you got the old Easter bunny, right? The Ishtar bunny. Well, isn't it quite obvious what the Easter bunny stands for, folks? I mean, obviously not Yeshua, right? Well, the Easter bunny, folks, represents fertility also. Think about it. Quick like a bunny. rabbits produce insanely fast. And so that's why rabbits always have a weird spot in Easter celebrations. So all you got your children running around grabbing dyed eggs, right? You know, and pictures of Easter bunnies everywhere, and the Easter bunny came and brought you candy and gifts. Do you not understand, folks, the Easter bunny bringing candy and gifts and such? It's symbolic of the Easter bunny bringing the gift of life, of babies. That's where it came from. My gosh, folks, it's time to be smarter, okay? It's time to learn our ancient past and how it ties in with our current past. I mean, our current time. See, this is all really simple, folks. Now, I've never had one Christian explain to me how Easter eggs and the Easter bunny and all this ties in with Yeshua's resurrection. It's obvious. I mean, look, man. Now there are there's some of the more strict Christian denominations. They will actually admit that Easter is a pagan holiday, okay? Or they'll do the resurrection, but they won't allow the Easter bunny and the Easter eggs and all that. But a lot of churches do. And why do churches do that, folks? Because they want to build their congregation, more money in the coffers. Look, folks, for churches, Easter is like Black Friday. Let's be real. Old Pastor Dan up there, instead of collecting 5s and 10s, Pastor Dan collected 50s and 100s on Easter, right? Because some of those people that never go to church, they'll attend just like the holidays, right? The holy days, they'll show up for just Easter or Christmas mass, right, or whatever, and and then they might leave a 50 or 100, and because they feel bad because they never go to church, right? They just do it occasionally. So, but old Pastor Dan, he's excited. He's gonna build an addition onto his house and stuff, with some of that money, because that's how it works, right? So, we got the Easter eggs, we got the Easter bunny, we got Ishtar, Inanna. And folks, this goddess, folks, has been worshipped since that at least written record of mankind, okay? Since the beginning. She has always been worshipped during the spring equinox. And that's because even Ishtar, Inanna, is symbolic of the spring equinox. Look, before I get into this real quick, just understand, folks, I'm not trying to put down your beliefs or anything. I just want you to understand, just be smart enough, just know enough to understand what you're believing in and what you're not. And it's cool, man. You're all for the resurrection, but just understand, when you partake in the Easter celebrations, you are celebrating Ishtar, Inanna, fertility rites, spring equinox, okay? It's all been balled up and remixed together. It's simple. Now, folks, this is the interesting part. So the whole 3-day resurrection, well, folks, this ties in with spring equinox, okay? Spring equinox is when for 3 days the sun dies. It doesn't go, it stays at the same level in the sky. And then at the spring equinox, the sun starts to rise higher in the sky. We get longer days, okay? It's the true kickoff of spring. It gets warmer. Longer days and such. And for the ancient people, that was huge, because that's when they knew it was time to start, that the woods and everything would come alive and they could start gathering mushrooms and gathering edibles, and the greens would start growing again. And right? And it was time to start planting. See, folks, our ancestors, the seasons were their guides in how their societies managed and operated. That's why Ishtar was so popular. And she went by other names, folks, okay? German tribes worshipped her. The Greeks and Romans. I mean, you'll find out all through, especially Europe, she was highly worshipped through different names. Astarte, Ostra. I might have said that name wrong. I believe that was the German name for her. You know, and this, there's a little contention on this one. I tend to think she's Aphrodite, because, you know, the goddess of love and stuff. But I don't know if Aphrodite represents fertility. So I could be wrong on that one. It's not exact across every culture, but her archetype has been worshipped since the beginning of written, you know, of our modern, you know, since written record, okay? But she has many names. There's like 10 different names in different cultures that are associated with Inanna Ishtar, okay? So Isis in Egypt, okay? So she's very popular. She has always been very popular, which is interesting because the Bible, man, it treats her like she's a demonic person, you know, which, let's be real, she even in the cuneiform, she's not a very good person in some ways. But you got to think about, you know, the whole point that she's the goddess of love, fertility, and war, folks. Think about that, war, right? War. Think about it, love and war, right? Love and hate. Everybody that's ever been in a serious relationships understands what I'm talking about here. And look, women, just like men, I mean, obviously men too. Look, I'm not trying to put down women here, folks. I'm just saying, women, especially when they're on their menstrual cycle, to some men can act a little crazy and mean. Well, if you notice in the cuneiform and stuff, sometimes Inanna Ishtar is greatly loved and appreciated, and then other times she's feared, and she's a little crazy sometimes, like when she was pursuing Gilgamesh in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then he calls her out, basically saying she's like a black widow, right? You know what that means, right? With her suitors and such. And that's why he don't want to get messing around with her. He thinks she's a little crazy, unhinged. And she is. She throws fits, and she goes, like I said, she she calls for the bowl of heaven to come down and destroy Gilgamesh and Enkidu. So, you know, but at the same time, she embodies great beauty too, and fertility and good things. So I don't know, folks. Look, man, if you ever notice the gods of old, they were more conceptualized after human beings. But I even take it further and I say, look, it's because these goddesses and gods were originally based off of the Anunnaki, these powerful ones, these shining ones that walked on the earth, that hybridized humanity. And eventually they set up religion as a way to control humanity. And they set themselves up as gods on the earth. So whether they left or they went behind the scenes or whatever happened to them, we are still worshiping them to this day through various ancient celebrations and traditions that have been passed down for thousands of years, folks. Now, there's other interesting connections with Inanna and with Yeshua, with the resurrection. So if you read Inanna's descent into the underworld, you'll find that she's killed by her, is it her sister or her cousin, Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal has her corpse hung on a wooden post or a wooden cross for 3 days. And then there's a yada, yada, yada. There's more to the story. But then eventually Enki sends some minions to go down and retrieve her corpse. And when her corpse is retrieved, they bring her back up out of the underworld, out of Ereshkigal's kingdom. And Enki gives her a elixir that resurrects her, brings her back to life. Well, she was in there for 3 days. She was in the underworld, folks, okay? And I've already talked to you guys in explained to you guys in other talks a little bit about that amazing story of Inanna's descent, because it also has to do with, and an allegory of the descent of the spirit into this realm, this lower vibration that's called the underworld, the shadow of heaven, right? And that when you die, you go through the 3-day cleansing process. And then you get resurrected in the spirit body back into heaven, into the higher dimensions. And this is all found encoded in Inanna's descent. But it's also a story about the equinox, folks, okay? Like I said, she was the goddess fertility. She was tied to the spring equinox. It's also an allegory about the sun and the rising. Think about this, folks. What do they always tell you? All these Christians, they all post on Easter Sunday, right? He is risen. He is risen. The sun has risen. The light of the world has risen. Folks, and look, I'm not saying Yeshua wasn't real. Just understand this, folks. But there's symbology tied in with that. Think about this. The sun has risen. The Son of God. Folks, replace the S-O-N with S-U-N. The sun that lights the world has risen. Yes, after 3 days of being dead, at least the ancients called it being dead, lying down on the tomb. Think about this, lying flat on the tomb, right? All of a sudden, the sun starts rising again. Now the days get longer. Now, the growing season started. Great celebration, right? The Son of God, the S-U-N of God, that lights the world. See, folks, they even tied in the whole spring equinox allegory with Yeshua's resurrection. Don't you get it? I mean, folks, Yeshua was teaching us about the afterlife, and he was spot on. I cannot find one single thing that he said that wasn't right, unless you refer to some of the things where I think that the church did manipulate things. Like, saying basically, if you're not a follower, you don't get allowed into the kingdom, that you have to worship Yeshua. No, Yeshua was just trying to say, like, look, man, we all go back home, okay? God the Father accepts all, even that murderer that was next to him and that thief that was next to him on the crosses. Because, folks, this is the classroom. Don't you get it? The learning. This is a simulation. This isn't the real home we come from, okay? Look, you incept your consciousness, immerse it into this realm by way of the human entering into the human avatar. When we leave this realm, sorry, I accidentally hit the a button on my phone. But when we leave this world, we all go back to the same place. And we are all brothers and sisters with Yeshua. He was the Son of God. He was the Son of Man, just as we all are, folks. We are all part and connected with the source of all creation, okay? I don't understand why this is such a contentious thing to even say, but it is. Because, look, a lot of people have been involved in church or in religion their whole life. And once you tell them that, look, even the atheist goes back home, they don't like that. They want judgment. They want damnation and all these things. There is none of that, folks. The only judgment that you get when you cross over from this realm is you get the life review. The life review is about your actions. It's a learning experience about how you should have done things differently, how you treated people, seeing it through their eyes and their emotions and feelings, okay? Yeshua was trying to teach us about these mysteries, and he had to hide it within allegories and within, parables. Because anybody that ever speaks out against authority or teaches truth over the lies of authority becomes a target. Just like the scientists did under the Christian regime in the Middle Ages, right? They had to hide their teachings and stuff, or they would be dismissed summarily. Well, it was the same in Yeshua's time, folks. Look, the temple priests didn't want some guy out here teaching the truth. They were teaching the cube of Saturn teachings, okay? They didn't want some guy teaching freedom and truth about our spirits and that we are gods walking this earth, that we are all powerful, okay? But yet we're limited and controlled in these human bodies. That's why he always said you had to deny the flesh, right? Because the flesh isn't us, folks. It's just the avatar, it's the vessel, okay? Yeshua knew all this. Anybody that attended the mystery schools in Egypt were taught these well-known truths that have gone back thousands of, if not tens of thousands of years. I mean, there's more I would have liked to go into on all this, folks, but we'll just leave it at this. I mean, I hope you guys got the gist of all this. Like I said, there's more we could have gone into, more details, but interesting connections, right, with Inanna Ishtar. Why do you think she's so prevalent in Easter? I mean, that's why, folks. I mean, don't you get it? I mean, it's so easy to see, but Christians will do backflips over and over and over trying to, debate you on this, or condemn you on this, right? Just for speaking these simple truths. It's easy to see. It's not hard to figure out how all this came to be. Okay? Like I said, there's a lot. Same with the whole Christmas Yuletide thing, right? Same thing. Once again, the Romans incorporated their pagan holidays and ceremonies and holy days in with the Christian belief system. See, the early Christians, they didn't have holy days, okay? The only ones that they ever followed were the ones that came down through the Judean faith, okay? Especially the earliest Christians were Judeans. So they were still holding on to a lot of the Judean faith. Now, real quick, before I go, folks, trust me, the Judean faith is not separate from any of this either. Think about it. The Passover. The Passover ties in a lot with this too. But I gotta go, guys. I really don't want to get into that any further. But anyways, just understand, folks. Like, look, I'm not trying to put down Yeshua or your beliefs. I'm just trying to teach you. Maybe, if anything, it just adds to the story, right? It adds enrichment to it. Like, get mad all you want that Yeshua, this great holiday of Yeshua's, is being shared with the Queen of Heaven, with the Ishtar, Inanna, too. The Queen of Fertility, okay? The Goddess of Fertility. Take it or leave it. It's up to you. But if you're out there with your kids and you say you're a Christian and you're dyeing eggs and you're, the Easter Bunny brought you a basket and all this. You remember how they used to always say babies came in baskets, right? Well, that's because a lot of times in ancient times when a baby would be delivered, after the umbilical cord was cut, after it nursed with the mother and all that, and the mother needed rest from her travail she just went through, the baby would be laid into like a basket, right? A little bassinet, little basket. Wrapped up, protected, right? That's why you always see these, remember, they used to always say, teach your children like babies came from storks, right? And what were they doing? They were carrying the babies in baskets. Oh my gosh, folks. I'm telling you, man, the Easter Bunny bringing the basket, right? And then you're going to go out on an egg hunt, the dyed egg, right? Well, people don't exactly dye in menstrual blood anymore. Maybe some pagans do, or some Wiccans do, right? That are still doing like earth magic and all that kind of stuff. That are doing spring equinox like ceremonies and stuff. They might actually still. But it's symbolic, folks, okay? So it doesn't matter any way you try to argue out of this. Look, it is what it is. Just accept it, okay? And if you don't want to tie Ishtar into your holiday celebration of Easter, then don't do the Easter eggs and the Easter Bunny and all that, okay? Because Yeshua was not, hey, make sure when after my resurrection and I go back home to heaven, make sure from day one after that, or for the next spring equinox, that you make sure you dye eggs like Ishtar and give out gifts and Easter baskets, right? Like I said, the Easter Bunny representing the fertility, and the Easter basket that oftentimes are represented with swaddled babies. The basket, right? The bassinet. I mean, I don't know, folks. Whatever. It's just I beat a dead horse here. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. When I used to post this on my Exit the Matrix page, oh man, I would get threats and attacks, and you wouldn't believe, because I used to write up articles on this on there. And if you go over to Exit the Matrix, it's still there, my original. No admins, it's just floating out in space right now, but you can still go to it. You have to search it up. You can look at how many times on Ishtar I posted these articles that I would write about all this, and it would break it down. And maybe some details I missed here. Maybe maybe I missed some details in the article, but if you want to go read that, go do it. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And look, I think we're way too serious about all this. Look, Ishtar, Inanna, in the spring equinox is just part of our culture that's been passed down for thousands of years. It's part of humans' history, okay? And was she one of the Anuna, the Elohim? I mean, according to the cuneiform, she was. Is she still in power to this day? I don't know. Is she still behind the scenes? Is she... Who knows? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe she was just a myth from the beginning. I don't know. I think there's a lot of details in the cuneiform, though, that tells me there's a lot of veracity to these Elohim, to these Anuna, right? So anyways, guys, hey, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. If you're interested in supporting Exit the Matrix, I do these personal one-on-one Zooms with people. If you're interested in that, let me know. My time for your donation is greatly appreciated. And, we can go as long as you want. The ones I've done never usually are an hour long. They usually end up 2 hours long or more. So anyways, guys, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later.